The Galactic Assembly's Grand Chamber fell silent as Ambassador Sarah Chen walked through its crystalline doors. The massive amphitheater housed representatives from over 30 spacefaring civilizations, their varied forms illuminated by the soft glow of artificial stars that dotted the vaulted ceiling. This was humanity's formal introduction to the galactic community, and Sarah felt the weight of 4 billion years of human evolution on her shoulders. The Assembly's High Speaker, a towering meridian with flowing bioluminescent tendrils, raised 3 of its upper limbs in greeting. "We welcome Earth's representatives to this historic session," it announced, its words translated simultaneously into every known language through neural interfaces. Sarah nodded respectfully, her ceremonial uniform catching the light. Behind her stood Admiral James Torres and Dr. Maya Patel, representing Earth's military and scientific communities respectively. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, but nothing could have prepared them for the reality of standing before the collected wisdom of the galaxy. "Honorable members of the Assembly," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Humanity comes before you not as supplicants, but as equals seeking mutual understanding and cooperation." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Most species approached the Assembly with far more deference. The Nexeri representative, a crystalline being known as First Light Through Storm, shifted in its containment field. "Your species has barely mastered faster than light travel. What makes you consider yourselves our equals?" Sarah smiled, having anticipated this challenge. "Because we achieved in centuries what many of your civilizations accomplished in millennia. Because we learned to adapt and survive on a world that tried to kill us daily. Because we turned our greatest weaknesses into our most formidable strengths." She activated a holographic display, showing Earth's history of technological advancement. "But most importantly, because we understand something that seems to have eluded many of your civilizations, the paramount importance of protecting the next generation." The High Speaker's tendrils pulsed with curiosity. "Explain this concept." "All species protect their young. Not like we do." Admiral Torres stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of military tradition. "Humanity's entire social structure, our laws, our moral framework, everything revolves around protecting our children. It's not just biological, it's the cornerstone of our civilization." Dr. Patil added, "Our extended childhood, which many would consider a vulnerability, forced us to develop complex social bonds and technological solutions. It shaped our evolution, our culture, and our technology." Sarah activated another hologram, this one showing the proposed treaty between Earth and the Assembly. "Which brings us to our non-negotiable condition for joining the galactic community. The Children's Protection Protocol." The document's text floated in the air, its key passage highlighted. "Any action resulting in harm to human children, whether deliberate or through negligence, shall be considered an act of war against the entire human race, triggering an immediate and unrestricted response." The chamber erupted in confused discussions. The Nexeri representative's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been amusement. "Such specific protection seems excessive. The Assembly already has general laws protecting all sentient life." Sarah's expression hardened slightly. "Then you should have no objection to this addition. Consider it a cultural peculiarity if you wish, but it will be part of the treaty, or there will be no treaty." The High Speaker conferred briefly with other senior members before responding. "We find your condition unusual but acceptable, though we must note that your species seems to harbor an excessive concern for a natural biological process." As the Assembly members signed the treaty, Dr. Patil leaned close to Admiral Torres and whispered, "They really don't understand, do they?" Torres watched the alien representatives, his eyes reflecting the artificial starlight. "No, they don't. And pray they never have to learn why this matters so much to us." Later, in their private quarters aboard the Earth ship Endeavour, Sarah reviewed the day's events with her team. "They see us as primitive, overprotective, and perhaps a bit paranoid," she said, pouring a celebratory drink for each of them. "Let them," Torres replied, accepting the glass. They've never had to evolve on a death world. They've never faced extinction a dozen times over. They've never had to build their entire civilization around protecting their most vulnerable members. Dr. Pidal studied the treaty text floating above her tablet. The protocol isn't just about protection. It's a warning. One they're too confident to understand. Sarah raised her glass. To the protocol, then. May it never need to be invoked. As the Endeavor began its journey back to Earth, none of the alien representatives could have guessed that beneath humanity's diplomatic veneer lay contingency plans for scenarios they couldn't even imagine. The Children's Protection Protocol wasn't just a treaty clause. It was a promise written in the blood of countless generations who had fought and died to ensure their children would have a future. And if anyone in the galaxy ever forgot that promise, they would learn why humanity's protective instinct was feared even by Earth's apex predators. 5 years after the signing of the Children's Protection Protocol, humanity's expansion into the stars proceeded at a pace that made the Galactic Assembly uncomfortable. The colony world of New Eden, with its sprawling cities and advanced educational complexes, stood as a testament to human determination and ingenuity. Governor Marcus Rodriguez stood at the observation deck of New Eden's Central Administration Tower, watching children play in the artificial gravity gardens below. The sight of young ones bouncing between carefully calibrated gravity zones, their laughter echoing through the environmental shields, always brought a smile to his face. But today, his expression was grim as he reviewed the latest intelligence reports. The Nexari ships are getting bolder, Security Chief Diana Walsh reported, her hologram floating beside him. 3 incursions into our space this month alone. They're testing our response times, studying our patrol patterns. Rodriguez rubbed his temples. And the Assembly claims the Nexari are conducting standard resource surveys. They're choosing to ignore the fact that these surveys keep happening near our schools and family sectors. The Nexari Empire had grown increasingly aggressive since humanity's rapid expansion. Their crystalline vessels, beautiful but deadly, had been pushing boundaries, deliberately crossing into human space with increasing frequency. Their excuse was always the same. They were merely studying the fascinating development patterns of human colonies. Across the room, Dr. James Chen, the colony's chief xenologist, was analyzing the latest Nexari communications. Their language has shifted, he noted, highlighting patterns in the data stream. They're using terms that in their culture indicate preparation for conflict. But there's something else. They keep referring to our children as resource drains and inefficient development units. Rodriguez's jaw tightened. Every human in the room felt a primal surge of protective anger at those words. Have they forgotten the protocol? Worse, Diana replied. They don't believe it. Their cultural database lists it as a primitive species peculiarity and diplomatic overreach. They think it's an empty threat. On the other side of the colony, Sarah Martinez taught her 3rd grade class, unaware of the high-level security discussions taking place. Her classroom was a marvel of educational technology, with interactive holograms showing the solar system and virtual field trips to Earth's historical sites. Today, they were learning about humanity's first contact with alien life. Miss Martinez, little Aisha raised her hand, her dark eyes curious. Why do the other aliens think it's strange that we protect children so much? Sarah paused, considering how to explain complex cultural differences to 8-year-olds. Different species grow up differently, Aisha. Some alien children can take care of themselves almost immediately after being born. They don't understand that human children need time to grow, learn, and develop, like how butterflies need their cocoon. Tawny suggested from the back of the class. Exactly, Sarah smiled. And just like how a butterfly's cocoon protects it while it grows, we protect our children while they develop into amazing adults. The classroom security system quietly logged another Nexari probe passing within the colony's outer detection grid, but the children continued their lessons, sheltered by layers of technology and human determination. In orbit above New Eden, Captain Alina Santos of the defense vessel Vigilant watched the Nexari probe with cold calculation. Her ship's weapons remained powered down. For now. Log another violation, she ordered her crew. And make sure our friends out there know we see them. The Nexari probe's crystalline structure sparkled as it turned, its sensors obviously recording everything about the human colony below. Alina had fought in Earth's last wars before first contact. She recognized preparation for conflict when she saw it. Captain, her tactical officer called out, "We're detecting unusual energy signatures from the probe. They might be testing our defensive screens." Alina's expression hardened. Send a tight beam message to their command ship. Quote the protocol, word for word. Then show them what happens when they push too close. She authorized a brief power-up of the Vigilant's main weapon systems, not enough to be considered threatening, but enough to remind the Nexari that humanity's ships weren't just for show. The probe retreated, but Alina knew this wasn't over. The Nexari, like many species in the assembly, had evolved in environments where offspring were numerous and naturally resilient. They couldn't comprehend the human drive to protect their young at all costs. They saw it as weakness, not understanding that it was this very trait that had driven humanity to develop some of their most advanced technologies. Back in the governor's office, Rodriguez was composing a message to Earth Command. "The Nexari are building towards something," he wrote. "They see our children as a vulnerability, rather than understanding that they are the source of our strength. Requesting additional defensive assets and authorization to implement protocol contingency measures." The response came within hours. Authorization granted. May they never make us show them why the protocol exists. As night fell on New Eden, parents tucked their children into bed, telling them stories of Earth and its history. In orbit, Alina's ship and others like it maintained their vigilant watch, and in the darkness between the stars, Nexari ships continued their probe, still believing they had found an easy target in humanity's protective nature. They would learn, as so many Earth species had learned before them, that there was nothing more dangerous than a human protecting their young. The attack came during New Eden's Spring Festival, when the colony's children were gathered in the Central Educational Complex for their annual science fair. First Light Through Storm, now Supreme Commander of the Nexari Expedition Force, had chosen the timing deliberately. In the Nexari's crystalline logic, targeting a gathering of immature humans would demonstrate the futility of devoting so many resources to protecting such inefficient units. The Nexari ships emerged from hyperspace with crystalline precision, their formation creating a lattice pattern that blocked New Eden's orbital lanes. Their improved stealth technology, developed through months of probing human defenses, allowed 3 strike ships to slip through the initial detection grid. Captain Alina Santos of the Vigilant was the first to recognize the attack pattern. "All hands to battle stations," she commanded, her ship's AI already calculating intercept trajectories. "Multiple hostile contacts on approach vector to the colony. This is not a drill." Repeat, this is not a drill. In the educational complex below, Sarah Martinez was helping her students set up their science projects when the first alarm sounded. The children looked up in confusion as the building's defensive systems activated, crystalline shields flowing like liquid metal across the windows. "Everyone stay calm," Sarah called out, years of emergency training kicking in. "Remember our safety protocols. Maya, lead your group to Shelter Zone 3. Aisha, you're with me." The Nexari strike ships launched their first wave of attacks against the colony's outer defenses. Their crystalline weapons, designed to bypass standard shields, met something entirely different: adaptive barrier technology developed specifically to protect human children. Governor Rodriguez's voice came over the emergency broadcast system, steady and resolute. "This is not an exercise. All civilians proceed to designated shelters. Defensive units to assigned positions. Protocol Omega is now in effect." In orbit, Alina watched in horror as 2 Nexari ships broke through the defensive screen, diving toward the colony's surface. "Launch interceptors," she ordered, but she knew they would be too late to stop the initial strike. The first blast hit the educational complex's outer shields. The building shuddered, but the reinforced structure held. Inside, Sarah herded the last group of children toward the inner sanctum, a bunker designed to withstand even planetary bombardment. "Miss Martinez," Tommy whispered, clutching his science project. "A model of Earth's first FTL drive. Are they going to hurt us?" Sarah's expression hardened, a look no alien species had yet learned to fear. "No, Tommy, they're not." She activated her neural link to the colony's defense network, connecting to thousands of other adults doing the same. They're going to learn why they should never have tried. The Nexary's second strike penetrated the outer shield layer, crystalline energy beams reaching for the building's core. But what first light through storm had dismissed as primitive defenses suddenly came alive with terrible purpose. From hidden silos across the colony, automated defense systems activated. These weren't the standard weapons the Nexary had observed during their probing attacks. These were the products of humanity's darkest fears and strongest protective instincts, weapons developed in secret, designed for one purpose only: to ensure that no force in the universe could ever threaten their children. Elena's tactical display lit up with new signatures as the colony's true defenses revealed themselves. "By all the stars," her tactical officer breathed, "those were there the whole time." The Nexary strike ships found their crystalline weapons reflected back at them by adaptive shields. Their supposedly superior navigation systems were thrown into chaos by targeted electromagnetic pulses designed specifically to disrupt their crystalline technology. First Light through storm watched in growing alarm as the human response escalated beyond anything their intelligence had suggested possible. Impossible, the crystalline being vibrated in disbelief. Their defensive capabilities were assessed at barely level 3. These are level 7 weapons at minimum. In the colony's command center, Rodriguez received the automated notification he had prayed would never come. Protocol violation confirmed. Children targeted. Authorization for full response granted. He opened a channel to the Nexary fleet. "You were warned." His voice carried the weight of every human parent who had ever protected their child. The protocol was not a diplomatic suggestion. It was a promise. Across human space, automated systems activated. Ships emerged from hidden docks, bearing weapons that humanity had developed but prayed they'd never need to use. The full might of human military technology, kept carefully hidden until this moment, prepared to unleash itself upon those who had dared to threaten their children. In the educational complex's bunker, Sarah held her students close as the building shook with another impact. The children, trained since they could walk for this possibility, remained remarkably calm. They trusted in the absolute certainty that the adults would protect them. It was a trust that had shaped human civilization for millennia, and now it would reshape the galaxy. First Light through storm began to understand, far too late, that the protocol had never been about diplomacy. It was a warning, written in the language of a species that had evolved on a death world, that had survived countless extinctions, that had built its entire civilization around one unbreakable principle: harm our children, and we will show you why even Earth's monsters fear us. The next 48 hours reshaped galactic history. As news of the Nexary attack on New Eden's educational complex spread across human space, a transformation took place that left the galaxy's oldest civilizations in stunned silence. Hidden shipyards throughout human territory activated, releasing vessels that had been carefully concealed from even the most sophisticated scanning technology. These weren't the modest defense ships humanity had shown to the Galactic Assembly. These were the products of humanity's deepest fears, fears of what might threaten their children. Admiral Sarah Chen, who had signed the original protocol 5 years earlier, stood on the bridge of the Earth Command vessel Prometheus, watching as the full might of humanity's fleet assembled. The ships were black as space itself, their hulls incorporating technology that most species believed was centuries beyond human capability. "Status report," she commanded, her voice carrying the cold fury of a species whose children had been threatened. All protocol contingency fleets reporting in. Admiral, her XO responded. 97% of hidden assets activated. The Nexeri don't stand a chance. The Nexeri fleet above New Eden was already learning this harsh truth. Their crystalline ships, previously thought invulnerable, shattered under weapons specifically designed to exploit their molecular structure. Humanity had spent years studying their potential adversaries, developing countermeasures for technologies they hoped never to face. First Light Through Storm watched in horror as human ships seemed to materialize from nowhere, their stealth systems far beyond anything the Nexeri had imagined possible. How? The crystalline being vibrated in distress. Their technological level was assessed at barely 7th tier. On the colony below, as the children remained safely in their bunkers, Governor Rodriguez coordinated with Earth Command. The Nexeri weren't just facing a military response. They were witnessing the activation of Protocol Omega, a comprehensive strategy that humanity had developed in secret since their first contact with alien life. Earth's diplomatic channels lit up with urgent messages from the Galactic Assembly. The High Speaker itself requested an emergency session, suddenly understanding that they had catastrophically misunderstood humanity's warnings. In the Assembly chamber, Ambassador Chen's successor, Michael Okonjo, stood before the gathered representatives. His voice was calm, but his words carried the weight of steel. You were all warned. The protocol was not a cultural quirk or diplomatic posturing. It was a promise written in the language of a species that evolved protecting its young against the deadliest predators Earth could produce. He activated a holographic display showing the human fleet's true capabilities. What you're seeing now is only a fraction of our defensive capabilities. For every technology we shared, we developed 3 we kept hidden. For every ship we showed you, we built 5 more in secret. We did this not out of deception, but because we understood something you didn't, that the galaxy might one day threaten our children. The assembly chamber erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't just been preparing for defense. They had been ready for full-scale war from the moment they made first contact. Admiral Chen's fleet surrounded the remaining Nexeri ships with surgical precision. Their weapons weren't designed just to destroy. They were created to make examples. Each blast was calculated, each strike precisely targeted to demonstrate the folly of threatening human children. Send the broadcast, Chen ordered. The message that went out was simple but carried the weight of humanity's full technological might. You were warned. Now learn. In the educational complex's bunker, Sarah Martinez and her students felt the vibrations of battle fade. The children had spent their time working on their science projects, their resilience a testament to the security they felt even in crisis. They trusted absolutely in the adults' ability to protect them, a trust that had driven humanity to create wonders and horrors in equal measure. The Nexeri fleet's destruction was methodical and absolute. Not a single crystalline ship escaped to carry warning to their empire, but the message would spread nonetheless, carried by the watching eyes of every species in the Galactic Assembly. First Light Through Storm, in the final moments before their flagship's destruction, transmitted a message that would be studied by xenologists for generations. We did not understand. The children were not their weakness. They were the source of their strength. Their protection of the young was not primitive instinct, but the foundation of their power. We fought them soft. We were wrong. As the battle ended, humanity revealed one final surprise. From the edges of human space came ships of a design no species had ever seen, incorporating technologies that should have been impossible for such a young civilization. These were the true guardians, vessels designed and built in secret, their sole purpose to ensure that no force in the galaxy could ever threaten human children again. Admiral Chen opened a channel to all human colonies. The threat has been neutralized. Our children are safe. The response was immediate. Cheers erupted from every human settlement across the stars. Not cheers of victory or bloodlust, but of relief. The protocol had worked exactly as intended, not just as a defense, but as a demonstration of what happened when humanity's most sacred law was violated. In New Eden's bunker, Sarah Martinez received the all-clear signal. As she prepared to lead her students back to their classrooms, young Tommy looked up at her. "Miss Martinez, did we win?" Sarah knelt down to his level, her expression soft but determined. "No, Tommy, we didn't win. We kept our promise. That's what humans do. We keep our promises, especially when it comes to protecting our children." 1 month after the Nexary incident, the Galactic Assembly convened its most significant session in 10,000 years. The Grand Chamber, once a place of casual diplomatic maneuvering, now held a palpable tension. The assembled species had witnessed humanity's true power, and more importantly, they had finally understood its source. Ambassador Michael Okonjo stood at the center of the chamber, but this time there was no trace of the diplomatic humility that humans had previously displayed. Behind him stood Admiral Chen and Governor Rodriguez, their presence a reminder of humanity's demonstrated capability. "We did not want this," Okonjo began, his voice carrying across the silent chamber. "We came to you in peace, asking only one thing, that our children be protected. You saw this as primitive, as weakness. The Nexary paid the price for that misconception." The High Speaker's bioluminescent tendrils rippled with a new emotion, respect tinged with fear. The Assembly acknowledges its misunderstanding of human nature. "We request guidance on preventing such incidents in the future." Okonjo activated a holographic display, showing not weapons or ships, but scenes from human history. "Look closely. Every major advancement in human civilization came from our drive to protect our young. Our first tools, our first societies, our greatest technologies, all born from this imperative." The images shifted to show human children in schools, parks, and homes across their colonies. What you saw as inefficient, our extended childhood, our protective instincts, our devotion of resources to education. These are the foundations of our strength. From her seat in the Assembly, the Meridian representative, whose species raised their young in communal pods, leaned forward. "But surely now that your superiority is proven, you will focus on more practical endeavors." Admiral Chen stepped forward, her expression stern. "You still don't understand. Everything we built, every weapon we created, every technology we developed, it was all in service of one goal: protection, not domination." The display changed again, showing the new proposal that humanity had brought to the Assembly: the Universal Child Protection Accord, a comprehensive framework that would extend to all species young. "We propose a new foundation for galactic civilization," Okonjo continued, "one that recognizes that the future of any species lies in its children, however they may develop." The Nexary forgot that they too were once children. All of us were. The chamber erupted in discussion as the implications became clear. Humanity wasn't seeking revenge or domination. They were offering to share their protective technology, their educational systems, their defensive capabilities, but with conditions. Governor Rodriguez stepped forward, activating additional displays showing the proposed changes. "Every species young will be protected, not just human children. Every colony will have the right to defend its future generations. Every civilization will share in the responsibility of ensuring that what happened at New Eden never happens again." The Assembly members watched in amazement as humans revealed yet another secret: a network of educational and protective technologies that could be adapted for any species-specific needs. They had been developing these alongside their weapons, hoping they would never need the latter. On New Eden, Sarah Martinez's class had resumed, but with a difference. Alongside her human students sat the first alien children to be enrolled in a human educational system. Young Meridians floating in their protective fields, crystalline, Nexary refugees whose parents had sought asylum, even a young High Speaker, its tendrils still learning to glow. "Today we're going to learn about different ways that species across the galaxy protect and raise their young," Sarah announced to her diverse class. "Because understanding each other is the first step to protecting each other." Back in the Assembly chamber, The vote was unanimous. The Universal Child Protection Accord was ratified, marking the beginning of a new era in galactic history. Humanity's hidden strength had not just been in their weapons or technology, but in their fundamental understanding that protecting the young meant protecting the future itself. Admiral Chen watched from the Prometheus as the news spread across human space and beyond. Colony after colony reported celebrations, not of victory, but of hope. The protocol had served its purpose, not just as a deterrent, but as a catalyst for change. In the years that followed, the galaxy would see a transformation. Species that had once viewed their young as mere continuation of the species began to understand the human perspective. Educational systems were revolutionized. Defensive technologies were shared and adapted. The assembly itself was restructured around the principle that any civilization's true measure was in how it protected its future. And in orbit above New Eden, where it all began, a monument was built, not to the battle or the weapons that won it, but to a simple truth that humanity had carried from Earth to the stars, that in protecting our children, we protect everything that matters. The Nexari would rebuild, their empire transformed by the understanding they had gained at such cost. Their crystalline ships would sail the stars again, but now as part of the protective fleet that safeguarded all species young. They had learned, as the galaxy had learned, that humanity's greatest strength had never been in their weapons, but in their unwavering commitment to nurturing the future. And in classrooms across the galaxy, children of all species would learn the lesson that humanity had taught the stars, that the measure of a civilization is not in its age or its technology, but in how fiercely it protects its most precious resource, the promise of tomorrow carried in its young.